Have you ever wondered why some women enter a room and leave men unmoored, adrift in a sudden, inexplicable obsession? It is not merely beauty or charm at play, nor the transient flirtations of social currency. It is something older, deeper, woven into the psyche itself, a silent alchemy that stirs the unconscious, calling forth shadows he has never faced and desires he cannot name. This is the power of presence, not the presence that demands attention, but the one that embodies an unshakable sense of self, a radiance tethered to nothing external, yet magnetic in the most dangerous way. A woman who moves through the world with quiet sovereignty ignites a hunger that is not of the flesh alone, but of the soul. She becomes, without effort, an addiction he cannot explain. The first way a woman's presence becomes inescapable is through the mirror of his own ego. Most men, unconsciously, navigate the world seeking validation, meaning, and reassurance from external sources. When a woman refuses to project herself into the mold of his expectations, when she carries an interior world so vivid and self-contained that it requires nothing from him, she reflects his shadow back to him in a way that both terrifies and enthralls. He sees not only her autonomy, but his own inadequacy mirrored in her indifference. The ego, unaccustomed to surrender, begins to twist and yearn. She becomes an object of fascination precisely because she resists objectification. The silent gaze of a woman who does not need him pries open the corridors of his mind where he has hidden uncertainty, ambition, and the longing for control, making him conscious of desires he thought he had mastered. Yet it is not cruelty nor strategy that wields this power, it is the natural alignment of self-possession and mystery. A woman's presence becomes addictive because it is never fully consumable. In her, there is a rhythm and depth that cannot be exhausted. She speaks with an inner logic, her laughter resonates with an intelligence that cuts through superficial chatter, and her silence carries a weight that demands attention. Every fleeting glance, every word spoken or withheld, layers him with a tension of anticipation and the quiet torment of wonder. He cannot predict her, and in that unpredictability, the mind becomes ensnared. Psychology calls this the interplay of approach and avoidance, but in a deeper archetypal sense, it is the dance between the anima he has projected onto the world and the real, living feminine force that refuses to be defined or tamed. The second way presence becomes irresistible is through the embodiment of emotional gravity. She is not merely reactive to the outer world. She cultivates her inner world with meticulous attention, sculpting her desires, her boundaries, her values. This inner gravitation, this emotional depth, exerts a pull that is unconscious yet undeniable. He is drawn to her not because of what she does for him, but because she exists as a fulcrum of something larger than his habitual patterns. Jung would call this an encounter with the archetype, an experience in which the ego is confronted by something ineffable, the unknowable feminine, the numinous. It is in her stillness, her refusal to dilute herself for the sake of his comfort, that he feels a magnetic tension, a mixture of longing, admiration, and inexplicable anxiety. He senses that to hold her fully would require confronting parts of himself he has long ignored, and yet he cannot look away. And then, there is the silent mastery of timing. She understands, instinctively or through cultivated self-awareness, the power of appearing and withdrawing, of engaging with full attention yet never surrendering herself to the narrative of his desires. Every absence, every pause, is a subtle stroke upon the canvas of his mind, painting the silhouette of obsession. In the space she creates, he begins to inhabit his own projections, imagining what her thoughts might be, what she sees in the world, and most dangerously, what he lacks in himself. This is the alchemy of addiction, not force, not manipulation, but a presence so complete and self-contained that he cannot help but revolve around it. Like a planet caught in the gravity of a star it can never touch. Her presence is a mirror, a challenge, a temptation, all at once. Do not mistake this for gamesmanship or artifice. The women who wield this effect are not plotting, they are simply whole. Their lives are composed of rhythm, ritual, and a quiet insistence upon their own value. In observing them, he is compelled to confront his shadow, to navigate desire without expectation, to feel the jagged contours of longing he has kept dulled by distraction. There is an addictive beauty in this confrontation, for it awakens a raw awareness of what it means to desire, to project, to yearn. And while the ego struggles, twisting in confusion, the woman remains untouched, sovereign in her interiority, luminous without demand, a presence that calls and dissolves simultaneously. Consider, then, the power of absence and attention combined. She moves through spaces fully present, yet never wholly offered. She laughs, she observes, she disappears, all with the same gravity that pulls him forward and leaves him trembling with curiosity and unresolved desire. In this way, her presence is not a tool of seduction, but a living demonstration of feminine force, complete, mysterious, and profoundly self-directed. Addiction does not arise from what she gives. It emerges from what she embodies, a psychic weight, an emotional cadence, a reflection of the depths he has yet to plumb. To know her is to confront one's own psyche, and in doing so, he becomes tethered inexplicably to her orbit. She does not speak of herself to be understood, nor does she bend to explanations or apologies. Her very manner of being is a study in contrast, approachable yet elusive, warm yet unclaimed, tender yet impervious. Men are drawn not simply to her beauty, but to the way she inhabits space, the invisible authority of a woman who has made peace with herself. In Jungian terms, she embodies the self, whole and individuated, a conscious realization of both light and shadow, neither of which she offers fully for consumption. Her shadow is not hidden, it is integrated, known, and it hums quietly beneath the surface, a subtle energy that tests the boundaries of any who dare to approach. In her, he sees both the alluring mystery and the frightening reality of a woman who is already complete, and he cannot help but orbit, desperate for fragments of what he cannot possess. This is the second thread that weaves him into dependency, the psychic dissonance of longing without fulfillment. Every encounter with her awakens a tension between desire and impossibility, a state that the mind cannot resolve. He becomes addicted to the emotional turbulence she triggers, the surges of anticipation, the pangs of absence, the exquisite torment of trying to decode what is fundamentally undecipherable. Unlike ordinary attraction, this is not fleeting. It burrows into memory, into thought, into the quiet moments between consciousness and dream. The very act of wondering what she is thinking, where she is, or why she chooses silence, creates a feedback loop in the psyche. He begins to chase phantoms of connection, pursuing her not for what she offers, but for the reflections of himself that she ignites. She becomes a living riddle, and every attempt to solve it deepens the addiction. Her third power lies in the mastery of emotional restraint. She does not amplify her presence with dramatic gestures or desperate claims of attention. Instead, she allows her energy to exist fully, without dependency on external validation. Her smiles are genuine, her laughter untainted by expectation, and her absence deliberate and calibrated. In these choices, she manifests the principle of detachment, a quiet, almost imperceptible authority that demands he engage his own inner world. Every pause, every quiet moment, forces him into introspection. He experiences desire not as a straightforward pursuit, but as a confrontation with his own unconscious, with fears, insecurities, and the archetypal longing for completion that no other can satisfy. In this way, she becomes addictive not through action, but through restraint, the paradoxical pull of someone fully present yet ungraspable. It is here that her power transcends mere interpersonal dynamics and enters the realm of the archetypal. She invokes the anima within him, the feminine principle lodged deep in the male unconscious, which governs desire, intuition, and emotional resonance. When a man encounters a woman whose presence is profound, integrated, and sovereign, his own anima reacts with intensity. He is forced to confront emotions he has disowned, yearnings he has denied, and aspects of himself he has avoided. The addictive quality of her presence is amplified by this confrontation, It is a compulsion to reconcile with the inner feminine, to make sense of the emotional upheaval she triggers. And in doing so, he becomes tethered to her orbit, addicted not simply to her, but to the awakening of himself that she catalyzes. Her presence is further amplified by contrast, by the world around her, by men who expect submission or performative compliance, by ordinary rhythms that pale next to the magnitude of her being. She is a storm contained, a gravity that warps the orbit of anyone who comes too close. And yet, she is not consciously orchestrating this. It is the natural outcome of a life lived with attention to the inner world, a life of boundaries, integrity, and cultivated mystery. The addiction she inspires is a byproduct of her wholeness, a wholeness that he cannot replicate, cannot contain, and cannot let go of. It is the tension of desire without control, fascination without fulfillment, connection without possession, that ensnares him so thoroughly. Observe, too, the way she uses absence as presence. When she retreats, she does not vanish into emptiness. She leaves behind the residue of attention, the echo of her energy, the imprint of her sovereignty. He cannot ignore it. Every thought of her becomes a loop of desire and reflection. Every memory of her presence is a trigger, a psychic pull that alternates between longing and awe. In the spaces she does not occupy, she exerts influence, shaping his emotional landscape, compelling him to confront what he cannot name, what he cannot hold. The addiction is invisible, subtle, and relentless, a tension between his conscious will and the unconscious forces she awakens. It is a presence that challenges, provokes, and transforms, and in that transformation, he becomes bound. He is not addicted to manipulation, not addicted to control, not addicted to seduction in the shallow sense. He is addicted to the experience of a woman who exists entirely as herself, whose energy resonates with depths he cannot navigate, and whose autonomy forces him to reckon with his own incompleteness. In her orbit, he encounters not just desire, but a reflection of the life he has not yet lived, the courage he has not yet claimed, the awareness he has not yet earned. She does not apologize for her fullness, nor does she fracture herself to soothe his insecurities. Every gesture she makes, every subtle shift in expression, is a testament to an interior life so rich and uncompromising that it leaves him trembling with both admiration and unease. The addictive quality of her presence lies not in spectacle, but in the understated perfection of integration, a harmony of strength and softness, awareness and mystery, light and shadow. In her, he confronts the very principles he has long resisted: vulnerability without collapse, desire without possession, engagement without dependency. She awakens the primal tension between the ego and the self, forcing him into psychic landscapes that are both intoxicating and disorienting, leaving him intoxicated with longing yet never fully satiated. There is a sacred rhythm to her interactions, a cadence that speaks to his unconscious as much as to his conscious mind. When she listens, she does so with depth. When she observes without judgment. When she speaks, her words carry weight because they are rooted in understanding rather than need. This deliberate harmony of presence and restraint is a psychological architecture that men cannot dismantle. It penetrates the layers of habitual patterns, compels reflection on past attachments, and awakens long-buried fantasies of connection and intimacy. He experiences her as a force of nature, something simultaneously comforting and terrifying, familiar and entirely unknowable. Every encounter leaves him emotionally restless, yearning for more of her presence, yet acutely aware that it will never be fully grasped. Addiction, in this context, is the unconscious acknowledgement of something profoundly transformative. He is drawn not only to the woman before him, but to the shadow she illuminates within himself. He sees the parts of his ego that are small, the wounds he has hidden, the desires he has repressed. She acts as both mirror and provocateur, revealing without accusation, teaching without words, challenging without coercion. In her orbit, the usual mechanisms of pursuit, domination, charm, manipulation, falter. His usual strategies dissolve against the backdrop of her unwavering self-possession, leaving him suspended in a state of unresolved tension, compelled to seek understanding, resolution, or possession where none can fully exist. The paradox is exquisite. Her presence is simultaneously nurturing and untouchable, inviting yet untamed, illuminating yet veiled. This duality generates a psychological dependence that is subtle yet profound, a compulsion rooted not in superficial attraction, but in the confrontation with his own inner landscape. He becomes addicted to the emotional resonance she triggers, to the psychic gravity she exerts, to the compelling tension between longing and impossibility. Every smile, every silence, every fleeting glance is a vector of influence, shaping his thoughts and feelings, guiding him through corridors of introspection, desire, and shadow exploration that he has never traversed before. It is the very embodiment of Carl Jung's assertion that we are drawn to what we need to integrate within ourselves, even when it comes wrapped in temptation and uncertainty. And yet, she remains untethered to his experience. She moves with sovereign intention, unaffected by the turbulence she inspires. Her addiction lies not in his obsession, but in the strength of her interiority, a self-directed, self-sufficient life that radiates autonomy. She is magnetic because she is complete, not because she seeks to ensnare. Her presence is addictive because it demonstrates what a man cannot manufacture in another, a living example of wholeness, mystery, and courage. He is compelled to orbit her, to witness, to long, to wrestle with desire, precisely because she embodies the integration of spirit, mind, and shadow that he secretly craves but has yet to achieve. Observe, then, how absence becomes a potent amplifier of this addiction. When she retreats, she leaves not emptiness but resonance. Her absence is rich with implication, layered with the subtleties of choice, boundary, and self-possession. In the space she creates, he projects fantasies and fears alike, filling the void with imagination, reflection, and the tension of yearning. This psychological loop, unconscious yet irresistible, keeps him tethered. He is addicted to what he cannot fully own, to the dynamic interplay of presence and absence, to the ongoing challenge of confronting a woman whose essence is beyond containment. She teaches without speaking, provokes without coercion, and captivates without yielding. The addiction is the shadow he cannot leave behind, the echo of the self he has not yet integrated, the silent pull of what he most desires and most fears. The addictiveness of her presence is not manipulation. It is the natural effect of alignment with self, depth, and unassailable autonomy. Every interaction, intentional or not, resonates with the quiet power of individuation. Every smile, every glance, every pause contains the gravitational pull of a psyche that has learned to harmonize shadow and light, desire and detachment, love and sovereignty. In this way, he is drawn not merely to her body or her mind, but to the living demonstration of a woman who has embraced herself fully, whose presence is a catalyst for transformation, reflection, and longing. She becomes the axis upon which his desires spin, addicted not to her, but to the awakening she evokes, the depths she reveals, and the impossible allure of what is fully alive, fully herself. She moves through life unbound by expectation, unshaped by approval, and untempted by the illusions of control. In her orbit, he feels the pull of a gravitational force that is neither coercive nor fleeting, but profound and persistent, a constant reminder of the autonomy he cannot seize and the mystery he cannot resolve. The addictive energy she radiates is not born of seduction or spectacle. It is the natural consequence of a woman who has reconciled with her own shadow, embraced her inner complexity, and surrendered to the rhythm of her own self-worth. Every gesture, every choice, every silence is imbued with a quiet authority that shapes him, even when she is unaware. He becomes tethered to her presence not because she commands it, but because she embodies a completeness he cannot manufacture or escape. In this final alchemy, she demonstrates the power of detachment. Her magnetism lies in the balance between engagement and self-possession, between intimacy and sovereignty. He is drawn to her, yet she does not yield. He seeks her, yet she does not chase. This tension creates a fertile ground for his psychological awakening, the shadow he cannot avoid, the desire he cannot ignore, the yearning that is both torment and revelation. Through her presence, he encounters the reality of longing without possession, fascination without control, attraction without entitlement. It is an encounter with the unknown and the unknowable, a dance between the conscious and unconscious, a mirror of the self that demands recognition. She embodies the essence of feminine power in its purest form, magnetic, mysterious, autonomous. She does not act to ensnare, to manipulate, or to dominate. Instead, she exists fully, and in her existence, she becomes an archetypal force. She triggers reflection, introspection, and transformation. He is drawn not only to her exterior but to the inner landscapes she illuminates, to the emotions she awakens, and to the shadows she stirs. The addictive nature of her presence lies in the collision of desire and self-realization, in the tension of yearning and unattainability, in the subtle mastery of emotional and psychic resonance. She is a living testament to what it means to be whole, to be sovereign, and to be unapologetically alive. And yet she remains free, untethered to the chains of his obsession, untouched by the turbulence of his longing. In her freedom, she teaches the ultimate lesson, that power lies not in pursuit but in being, not in possession but in presence. She demonstrates that a woman who knows her value does not seek validation from others, but radiates it inwardly, and in doing so, becomes irresistible in ways that cannot be explained, controlled, or confined. Her addiction is not a trap, it is a revelation. She reminds him, and all who witness her presence, that true desire is stirred not by availability, but by integrity, mystery, and mastery of the self. In the end, the lesson is profound yet simple. The woman who moves through life with authenticity, emotional gravity, and sovereign presence becomes unforgettable, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. She does not chase, she does not yield, she does not dilute her essence for the comfort of others. She is whole, integrated, and luminous, a force of feminine power that leaves an indelible mark on the psyche of any who encounter her. He may attempt to understand, to hold, to possess, but she remains a living paradox, present yet untouchable, magnetic yet autonomous, illuminating yet inscrutable. It is in this paradox, this tension of presence and freedom, that she becomes addictive, a force he cannot explain, and perhaps cannot ever resist. And so, in her orbit, he learns without being taught, he feels without being comforted, and he desires without being entitled. She is the embodiment of Jungian feminine power, the mirror to shadow and light alike, the catalyst for inner awakening. Her addiction is the echo of her integrity, the resonance of her completeness, the pull of her sovereignty. She is a presence that transforms, unsettles, and awakens, and through her the truth is revealed. The most profound power a woman can wield is not the power she grants, but the power she becomes. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.